But guys, I did tell you, they're going to keep coming. We've already done the best pop albums of the 21st century. We've already done the best hip-hop albums of the 21st century. And today, we are looking at the best rock albums of the 21st century. In my opinion, of course, this is no overarching influential list that has the most important albums of the century or whatever. It's not that kind of list. Some of these albums are important, obviously. Some of these albums are maybe more on the underrated side, but at the very least, what you're getting today is my honest opinion. These are my favorite rock albums of the 21st century so far. It's not full of the most, mainstream, obvious rock albums, but at the end of the day, rock isn't in that kind of place anymore. We don't see these huge rock moments in the mainstream, and we haven't done for this entire century. There's been some moments, of course. There's been some huge breakthrough bands, obviously, but ultimately, rock isn't in that place right now. And I do think you have to dig a little deeper to find the best of rock. I really do think that. You could probably say that for most genres, to be fair, and people just scoff and think you're being a hipster, but it really is true. And I think it is even more true for rock nowadays. I mean, the biggest mainstream rock bands of the past 15 years are like Imagine Dragons, I guess. Is that the best we've got? No, it's not. It's not, okay? It's not okay. There's been plenty of great rock over the past 25 years, and I'm hopefully going to highlight it in this list, and hopefully you're going to agree with me, and hopefully you're not going to shout at me in the comments and tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, we're going to try that. We're going to try it, hopefully. And yeah, as always, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you check out the other lists that I've been doing as well. It's been really fun doing these, so you should check out the other ones. I'll probably be doing even more too. And yeah, make sure you're liking the video, sharing it around, sharing your list in the comments as well. What would yours look like? Would love to see it. And yeah, check out my Patreon if you're feeling really generous. You can jump over in the Discord server immediately. If you support me over on there, you can get other perks as well. Access to, votes that I sometimes do, or, choosing your own videos that I can do in the future as well. That kind of stuff. Would love to see more people over on there. So if you're feeling really generous and like this video a lot, you can maybe consider supporting me on there as well. So without further ado, let's just get into the list. At number 25, legendary rock outfit Sleater-Kinney with The Woods, who have a lot of really good 90s output and have been putting out music for a very long time, are still going today, but I don't think they can really, you can't really make much of a case that anything else is better than this album. The Woods is just fantastic. It goes really brash, goes really loud, it's abrasive at times, super melodic at times as well. I just think it's the best culmination of everything that they were doing up until that point, and giving you even more than that as well. At number 24, guys, I've lived in Sheffield for a very big part of my life, a good chunk of my life. Don't be too surprised to see Arctic Monkeys make this list. And I'm picking Favourite Worst Nightmare. I know a lot of people would say whatever people say I am, that's why I'm not, which is also a great album, and honestly very unlucky not to make this list. And I know some people would maybe even say AM, which ended up being one of their biggest albums and one of the biggest rock albums of the 2010s. But I don't think either touch Favourite Worst Nightmare for me. I think this has got the most character. I think it's got some of the best songs they've ever made. Yeah, I absolutely love this one. And at number 23, we've got One of Us Is the Killer by Dillinger Escape Plan. It would feel wrong to leave off this band off this list, and I just had to go with this one because I've always found this album to be super explosive, super exciting. But you could really pick many of their albums from the 2000s that could make this list as well. I wouldn't really mind. Maybe a bit of a surprise at 22, but Chaos Now, Gene Dawson. It is a very recent album, but I'm very confident in including it on this list. I do feel as though Gene Dawson is a very exciting artist at the moment. I think this album's super replayable. I get so much out of it every single time I play it. I think Pixel Bath is also a great album, but I just have a bit more of a soft spot to this one. The more kind of energetic performances, the really anthemic and over-the-top choruses, like it's just all so good, and it's super youthful. It's got this really great youthful spirit to it. Absolutely love it. I think it's fantastic. I've got to go with 21. My Chemical Romance basically ran my entire childhood. They were the band I loved for so long, and the Black Parade is an amazing album, don't get me wrong, but I personally have always thought Three Cheers was their best. I think I ran the Black Parade down to the ground, overplayed it like crazy. It is a fantastic album, one of the best rock opera albums ever, certainly one of the best rock albums, you know, to come from that kind of Kerrang pop punk emo era of the 2000s for sure. And again, unlucky not to make the list, but Three Cheers I just absolutely adore. I think this album's way more raw, it's way more rugged, it's way more just messy, and kind of gets the point across, I think, in a really good way. I think the songs are super high voltage. There's so much momentum carrying the songs. I think it's all so great. Even their first album is pretty underrated nowadays as well. And number 20, going to move on to Hellfire, Black Midi. Very sad that these guys have called it a day. I think it's very out of nowhere that they did call time on the band. Really cool to see Geordie still going on a solo venture and stuff, but man, I'm going to miss Black Midi. This is truly a fantastic album, just absolutely boggling in how they take their sound in so many weird directions. Just a fantastic little run we had from these guys when they were kicking about, man. That I'll always remember that run. That was a great time to be a rock music fan, I think, when these guys were kicking around, because it was so good. I mean, when we're talking about drummers as well, this is probably the best drummer on this entire list. This guy is a freak on the drums. Insane stuff. I don't think many people are going to be having too many complaints about number 19, Sound of Silver, LCD Soundsystem. A part of me was struggling to kind of categorize what genre it is. I suppose it's dance punk, but there are elements of rock that go into that as well. But yeah, I think these guys were sensational in their time. I think this is easily their best as well. I don't really think there's much of a case for their others being better than this one, although I do see some people say This Is Happening is their best. I don't know if I fully get that, but yeah, I this one, man, All My Friends, Someone Great, I mean, truly spectacular stuff. Absolutely adore what they were doing. Relationship of Command at number 18. Yeah, I mean, At the Drive-In, more of a post-hardcore outfit, I guess you could call it here. But God, this vocalist has an insane range. Like, he is pulling out insane notes. The musicianship is spectacular as well. I have kind of carried this one over from my childhood as well. I mean, I loved this one when I was a teenager, and even to this day, I absolutely love this album. So it seemed like an easy one to place on this list. 59 Sound next. Gaslight Anthem. A bit of a disappointing live band when I did see them, but I'll always hold this album in a special place in my heart. I mean, in terms of like Heartland rock and that kind of like, you know, Springsteen, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers era sound, I don't really think anybody else has quite captured it like these guys. I mean, this is perfectly done on this album, man. You've seen other bands and artists kind of try and pull from that era a lot. The Killers are even starting to do it now in their later days, but I don't think any band quite captured it as well as Gaslight Anthem. Number 16, Bark Your Head Off Dog, Hop Along, a bit more on the indie side here, but I love what Frances does with her writing. I think she's a really great writer, and how like jagged and rough some of these instrumentals sound, how kind of yelpy her voice gets. She has such a really unique tone and unique style to her singing that I don't think would be necessarily for everybody, but I've always had a soft spot for these guys. Again, other albums from their discography like Painted Shut as well, really good album too. So yeah, for me personally, went with Bark. Next as well, we've got the Hotelier with Home Like No Place Is There, which I think is one of the best emo albums of the 21st century, without a doubt. Not the most mainstream emo album, obviously. I've already mentioned My Chemical Romance on this list, but I think, yeah, when it comes to that kind of pained writing, I don't think it really gets any better than what these guys are able to do with their songwriting. It's really fantastic. At number 14, we have another pick where it's like a popular band, but not necessarily the album you would personally pick. But for me, it's got to be Saturday Night Wrist for Deftones, man. I think what they conjure up on this album is absolutely spectacular. I think the shoegaze and dreamy elements are incorporated amazingly into the music. It just brings this incredibly dense atmosphere to the table that I don't think many other bands can really conjure up. I think it's fantastic. I think Deftones are really brilliant. Again, could have picked a lot of albums from these guys because they've very much been at their peak for a long time now. Obviously a lot of people would probably say White Pony, which is fair enough, but I just got to go with this one. I've just got to go with how I feel, man. This is their best album to me. At number 13, got Heaven to a Tortured Mind, Yves Tumor. Would I have ever imagined before this album coming out that Yves Tumor could ever make a list like this? Not really, even though I did like what Yves Tumor was doing before this album, but good God, this kind of glam, over-the-top theatrical sound that they came up with here is crazy. I find a lot of these songs to be so cool, so mesmerizing, and just a really unique take on how you can structure songs, but also just be incredibly like catchy and punchy and straight to the point as well. Yeah, love it. Number 12, Apologies to the Queen Mary, Wolf Parade. I think this is kind of like My Modest Mouse, really. Like that kind of unique vocal tone that comes through has always been something I found so intriguing about this band. So many of the choruses are fantastic and sing along as well. Yeah, I do respect Modest Mouse and do like what they were doing, but I just think Wolf Parade came through. Very much a one-hit wonder here, by the way, because I don't think any of their other albums are very much worth your time, but my God, what an album they came through here. At number 11, I've got Shiny Eyed Babies by Bent Knee. Before you're very quick to jump in the comments and be like, you're a hipster, nobody knows this album, get to know it, my friend, because this is super theatrical, it's super over the top. Some of the instrumentals are crashing or explosive, they're fantastic. The vocalist has an insane range. She's basically like pulling out these opera notes at times. Just really crazy range of a singer. I find this album to be fantastic. Such a large scope. I think it's an amazing musical experience here. Had to be on my list, even though, again, you'd be maybe scoffing and saying nobody knows it, but still, man, it really should be known by more people. Now into the top 10, I've got Spanish Love Songs, Brave Faces, Everyone. I mean, you guys probably should know I'm a big fan of this one. I know plenty of other reviewers were pretty big on this one as well, like Spectrum Pulse 2, for good reason. I mean, this is very much the peak of pop punk, I would say. Like, this is as good as this genre can get. A lot of popular bands in the 2000s were carrying pop punk, of course, like Blink-182, Simple Plan, all those guys, Good Charlotte for sure, but I think this is like the most mature and earnest it can truly get. So many incredible lyrics on this album, just kind of like discussing, you know, the state of his life and the environment and the politics that have kind of caused a lot of these destitute and poor areas and that kind of stuff. It's an amazing album for me. And speaking peak pop punk, how about we do it one better and go with Worry by Jeff Rosenstock at number 9. I mean, good God, that little insane like catastrophic run at the end where all the tracks are just super short, super manic. It's kind of like, you know, Abbey Road with the Beatles, where like they just kind of went on these really weird little detours towards the end of the album and all the songs kind of flowed into one another. This isn't me saying like Jeff Rosenstock is making an album like on the level of what the Beatles were doing or anything like that. Don't misquote me there, guys, but it's just a little comparison I had there with how crazy and all over the place and kind of like panic this album kind of goes into. It's just such a state of array, again, kind of very much touching on the state of America and capturing it at one particular time and really demonstrating those feelings in such a unique way. But yeah, Jeff Rosenstock, what a guy, what an album. Again, very hard to really convince me that this isn't the best thing he ever put out, really. I'm sure he'll still continue to put out really good albums because, of course, I did like his last one. But yeah, Worry is easily the magnum opus, man. Like, it's so hard not to really see it like that. I gave you a bit of a sneak preview of my pop albums list where I said that Everything's raw data feel felt more like a pop album. And then Get to Heaven, which is at number 8 here, feels more like the rock album. And it very much does. It's artsy, it's creative, it's wild, it's batshit bizarre with the lyrics at times, but funny. It's got a humor to it. Yeah, I absolutely adore these guys. They still feel ridiculously underrated too. They are, you know, doing well. They've got an audience, they've got a fan base. People are recognizing their talents, but yeah, I just think in terms of like British rock bands out there right now, I don't know if many of them are touching what Everything are doing, and I just find it really hard to exclude this album off this list because I just think it's brilliant. I just think it's brilliant. At number 7, maybe a bit of a surprise pick here for some people, but I will stand by it because Bleed American by Jimmy Eat World, I think, is very much the peak of that era of rock music. A lot of people know it really just for the middle. Great song, don't get me wrong, I love the middle, but I think a lot of these tracks have a lot going for them. I think they're super anthemic. You kind of feel like you just want to get drunk and sing along to every word on this album. It's got that youthful energy to it as well. I adore this album. I think it's brilliant, and yeah, just kind of always had a soft spot for it, and it's hard to really shake that off for me personally. Number 6, my favourite Queens of the Stone Age album, guys. I've told you before on this channel, I did a worst to best, and Like Clockwork for me is the one. Like Clockwork is the one. I think this album is the most grandiose. I think this album is the most vivid. I think it has the best writing, the best lyrics. I think it has some of the most, you know, explosive moments as well, like My God Is the Sun. It has some of the funkiest and grooviest bass grooves, like I Sat by the Ocean. It has these epic, huge moments as well with these songs that are sprawling for like 6-7 minutes. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And yeah, I think this is the peak of what they were able to achieve. Songs for the Deaf, again, you could include that. That would be fine. I'm not going to be against it if that would be your pick. Rated R as well. I think that came out in 2000, didn't it? So again, another album, again, I could see you picking. But Like Clockwork for me is the one. We're in the top 5 now, and it's very hard to see anybody complaining about this one. Blackstar, David Bowie. My God, what the hell was he cooking up here? He basically turned his death into like a whole artistic expression. Absolutely wild. Some of these lyrics are prophetic as well, with the whole like where the hell did Monday go, and then obviously he did end up dying on a Monday. Just so weird and just really bizarre in places. The kind of destruction of himself and like viewing himself as this kind of like once a star that's about to leave the earth in such a beautifully sad way. On, you know, the title track as well, it's just insane. And some of the like experimental moments on here too. I mean, when he was like in interviews, I think he was talking about how like Death Grips influenced this, Kendrick Lamar was an influence, like absolutely wild pulling points for David Bowie of all artists. But it just kind of went to show how much of an icon he was and how much respect and appreciation he had for all kinds of music. And it gave us truly one of his best ever works. And honestly, if you were to call this the best rock album of the 21st century, I would not be there to debate with you. Like, this easily could be number 1. For me, I've just got a few more that I like a little bit more, but good God, what a musical moment this was. And yeah, an incredible piece of work. And number 4, what can be above that? Well, again, maybe a bit of a soft spot for me, but Bloc Party Silent Alarm. I think this kind of post-punk revival sound that we saw break through in the 2000s, you know, all kinds of bands, which you may be sad to not see on this list. You know, Interpol were doing it, The Strokes were doing it. So many bands were pulling it out of their arses and just decided they wanted to kind of bring back that kind of sound and revive it in this type of way. You know, the Libertines, I could go on and on and on, but I just don't know if any of those bands did it like Silent Alarm. I think so many incredibly emotive moments. The vocals I find to be super unique as well. Just so many fun tracks as well, man. Like Helicopter, Banquet, so good. But then, you know, like Eating Glass, like a beautiful track. So Here We Are as well. Again, yeah, just an amazing album, and maybe not one that you'd see high up on other people's lists, but Bloc Party are the goats for me. Again, maybe a little bit of a one-hit wonder too. Sorry to the people that like their other albums, but I don't see it, man. This is easily their best. This Modern Love too, didn't even mention that one, but absolutely amazing song. But anyway, top 3 now. We've got very much an obscure pick here, but I've got to include it, man. Walrus, Hikari no Kakera. What an album this is. And I've got to take a bit of credit here, because when I did my Undiscovered Gems video, this had like less than 100 ratings on Rating Music. But since that video, you sneaky people have like raved about this album on their website, and it's like bolded now. It's got thousands of ratings. I'm just saying, just a little bit of a coincidence. I'm just saying, but I'm glad a lot of people did start to discover this, because this is a mammoth album. Very much in the kind of shoegaze lane, but oh god, like the chunky guitars, the huge blistering drums, it definitely makes it a rock album for me easily. Like, this is ridiculously gargantuan. Every song sounds like the singer is singing from the top of a mountain. It's crazy. It's absolutely unbelievable. The large, like, icy feeling that you get, just like this cold, destitute place with nobody around, and this singer is just blasting out these vocals. It really paints a picture, I will say. It's wonderful. Absolutely amazing stuff. Absolutely way too undiscovered still, even though it has become more discovered, but still way undiscovered. So yeah, please check this out. Again, don't dismiss it just because you don't recognize it. It really is that good, I promise you. And number 2, one of my favourite bands in the rock world of the 21st century has got to be the Drones. I See Seaweed is my pick here. I think their style of combining punk and blues is ridiculously creative and creates such a unique sound. I think their lyrics are very unique and very, very, very brilliantly written as well. And while that punk blues sound obviously comes through on this album, there are some tracks that go in a really, really off-kilter direction. Like the opening track is this 10-minute, ridiculously sprawling song. It doesn't really like fit into the confinements of punk or blues, really. It's just its own thing altogether. But it's a ridiculously amazing song. So yeah, the whole thing I think is brilliant. It's on my list here for sure. But now we have to reveal number 1. And yeah, I'm kind of taking it back to that 2000s indie rock era again for you guys. Because for me, the best rock album of the 21st century is TV on the Radio's Dear Science. And I'm sick of this not being talked about in that way. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it, because this album should be. It really is that bloody good. The vocals are really commanding and have a really unique tone to them, while also having this kind of jauntiness. I think they were maybe a little bit more weirder or on the odd side with an album like Return to Cookie Mountain, but I think they just kind of went straight forward for some really fun, fist-pumping rock tunes on this album, and it really paid off. So many quotable lines, so many tracks that like used in pop culture as well. I think one of the songs was used for Breaking Bad as well, which is pretty cool. But even regardless of that, I think the entire sound that they come up with is great. I think the tunes are all there. It's really anthemic. It's brilliant. It is brilliant for me. And I was thinking about this list and thinking, like, could it be this is the best one for me? And I just couldn't really debate it, and I couldn't really argue it, and it just felt right when I put it at number 1. It just seemed like the right pick, and again, maybe a bit of a sort of like a low-key one-hit wonder, although their album before this was very good, but I don't think they ever really reached these heights once they made this one. But yeah, I think it's brilliant, and I hope people understand why this one would be my number 1 pick for the 21st century. And that is it from me. These are my 25 best albums of the 21st century in the rock genre. If you agree, disagree, let me know. I'm sure you'll be, wondering where this album is, or where this band is, or this, that, and the other. Radiohead didn't even make the list. I do like Radiohead, so just because it's not on this list does not mean I don't like it. I just had to pick the 25 that felt right to me the most, and the ones I loved the most as well. So, of course, there are plenty of lists out there that will have the albums that you want to see Arcade Fire, I'm sure, would be another one people will be saying, where's that one? But these for me are my picks. Okay, this is my list, and hopefully you got something out of it, at least a recommendation here or there. But surely, you know, you can pull out something that you're going to check out and hopefully get something out of. So let me know if you do. Please, as always, subscribe, check out more videos on the channel as well. Stick around for more lists like this. I might do electronic next. I'm thinking that might be the one, so hopefully you guys are there for that one too. Have a good day and goodbye.